Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Joffy Noodle Legs again. We're here today. We're just doing another horror video. Today we're just going to go through my top 10 underrated films. Horror films that I think that don't get enough sort of not prestige as such, but love, because maybe because some of them not heard of, or just because they go bypass, but they're just some of the best horror films that have ever been made, and they're just fantastic. And I hope I'm going to be mentioning a few that you've never watched today, and hopefully you think, oh, I'll give that a watch. Yeah, so I'm going to go to underrated films. So when we say underrated, we mean just films that not maybe box office smashes, or sort of well known. A lot of these are really well known. In fact, most of them are well known, but I just think that they're really underrated, and just think they deserve more recognition than what they've got. So before I go to my top 10, of course, I always have my honourable mentions. I've got a few here, honourable mentions. First one is Troll Hunter, a Norwegian film. Obviously says what it is in the title, troll hunting a troll. It's a great monster flick. It's really well shot, and it's a great story. If you've never seen Troll Hunter, check it out. It's a really good film. That's one of my honourable mentions. Here's one you don't get to see mentioned very often. It's an Eli Roth film, and it's called Clown. Yeah, when I first saw, oh, it's going to be like the Joker, but it's not. It's a really good horror film. It's quite creepy. He actually looks really creepy. Yeah, Clown. Watch Clown. Really good. I can't go into much of the story of it, but it's quite obvious. Obviously, this guy is pretty much turning into a clown. This is not a costume he's wearing. If you get a chance to see that, watch it. This next unrated film is a classic from the Amityville series, and it's Amityville 2, The Possession. The first one's really good, but the second one is my favourite, and I think it's a really underrated film. I think it's a really good sort of a demonic sort of film, and it's I don't know how popular it was when it came out, but it just didn't seem to get a lot of love, and it's actually a really good film, and the story is brilliant. And again, it's supposed to be based on some sort of true stories. The Possession, Amityville 2. Check that film out, it's really good. Here's another one you don't get mentioned very much, and that's Trick or Treat. It's a 1980s sort of slasher film. It's a sort of heavy metal film. A young kid who's into heavy metal, his favourite rock star dies, and starts talking to him beyond the grave through playing the records backwards, and yeah, it's a really good, fun, typical 80s teen slasher film. Trick or Treat, really good. Another great, this has originally come out in the 50s, but this is the 1980s remake, and it's the Blob. Again, it's got a real 80s feel to it, and it's a really good film. It's a really good. I like the original one had Steve McQueen in it, but I actually do prefer this one. It's got Kevin Dillon starring in it. Yeah, I actually do prefer this over the original. Very rarely do I want that ever happen to me, but this is one that's happened. It's the Blob. It doesn't get a lot of love, and it's a really good science fiction horror. So watch that. Another sci-fi horror that gets an honourable mention to me. Amazing film, amazing cast, and that's The Mist. It's fantastic. If you're a fan of like video games like Silent Hill and things like that, and you're into your monster flicks, this is fantastic. It's pretty much based inside a supermarket where all these people are trapped in there, and there's creatures outside, and it's fantastic. It's a really good film, The Mist. It's got a great soundtrack. It includes some songs from the Dead Can Dance in it as well. This version is really cool because it contains the black and white version as well as the colour, and the black and white version I think works even better. They're my honourable mentions for underrated films. So we're going to get into my top 10. underrated films. In number 10 is The Witch. A lot of these are quite modern ones, to be honest. The Witch. It's a very, very, very slow film. It's an excellent film. It's very haunting film, and yeah, it's not gory. There is some gore in there, but it's just a very haunting story, and it's based in America, New England, at the turn of the century, like, you know, the 18 or 1700s. So, and it's absolutely fantastic. If you like films about obviously witches, Blair Witch, and anything to do with witchcraft, you know, The Witch is the one for you. And it's even it's the language that they use in there is Old English. So it can be quite difficult to follow the dialogue because it's spoken in Old English. But I like that even more. It just adds even more sort of a atmosphere to the film. The Witch, really good film. Number 10. Number 9, yeah, I don't see this one spoke about a lot, and it's The Boy. This is a really, really creepy film. It's quite a modern film. It's got this doll on the front, and if I remember right, again, I haven't watched this for a couple of years, but I remember loving it, and I've seen it a couple of times. And this woman thinks this doll is her boy, and the boy's, oh, yeah, I'll just say it's a modern child play, whatever, but it's a really creepy film. The Boy. If you like really creepy, haunting horrors, The Boy's the one to watch. It's not very gory, but it's just a really sort of scary film, and it's really good if you want to watch something that's a bit creepy. Yeah, The Boy. I must rewatch that. I've not watched it for a while, but if I remember right, it's just about this doll that sort of I don't know if the doll's possessed, but it's got like the spirit of the boy that was killed, or whatever it is. But it's a fantastic film. Watch The Boy. Okay, number 9. Number 8 is a 1970s slasher film called Scarecrows. A really good film. It's a very slow moving film, really badly acted, but it's actually really quite cool. For the time it came out, the effects in it were really good. And you look at the Scarecrow, it actually looks really creepy, right? And the Scarecrows in this film are really, really well done and really creepy. It takes a while to get going, but when it does, and the Scarecrows start making their kills, then it starts to pick up. But yeah, Scarecrows, it's a 1970s slasher film. That's in at number 8. Watch that. I've got a sci-fi horror in at number 7. Event Horizon. I do love this film. It's got Sam Neill in this, I believe. Yeah. Cheers. Sorry guys, a bit thirsty today. It's a bit warm. Yeah, it's again, it's about a sort of haunted spaceship. It's a really, really good film. There is quite a bit of gore in there. Quite underrated. It is a sci-fi film, but to me it's a sci-fi horror film because it's got the elements of horror, like hauntings and people going mad and crazy. Yeah, it's a really good film. Event Horizon. Number 6 is a Dario Argento film. It's my favourite one of his, which is Phenomena. In the UK, I believe it came out as known as Creepers. Really good film. This girl that talks to insects, and it helps her solve investigations. It's when the insects attack. It says on the back. It's got Donald Pleasance in it. Yeah, it's a classic Dario Argento film. His films are awesome. They're very long, so you have to have the and they can be quite slow. I remember the 1980s cover of it more. It had that sort of chimp on there, and it was under the title Creepers. But yeah, it's a really, really good film. If you get a chance to watch it, I say it's got Donald Pleasance in there. He comes up in a lot of horror films, doesn't he? He must have been a bit of a horror fan himself. He's in a lot of horror films. It is quite gory, the film. I believe it was in the Video Nasties, that one. So we're down to my top 5. Number 5 is another slasher. Never ever gets talked about, an 80s slasher. And it's called Edge of the Axe. It's a really, really good film. The killer's really cool. Does he resemble someone? Yeah, it does resemble Jason a lot. But it's actually really, really good. Um, it's not as gory as a lot of the slasher films that are out at the time, but it works in this film. Sometimes the gore can not work, and if you want the gore more than the film, but this has actually got a really, really good story. I'm not going to spoil it because I'll just, it's I want you to discover these movies for yourself. I love them. I think they're underrated. That's why they're in here. So when I talk about these films, I try not to give too much of a sort of stories away to you, just simply because I think I want you to discover them yourself. So Edge of the Axe in at number 8. No, sorry, number 5. So into my top 4. 1970s film, was it 1970s, no, 80s? I think it's an 80s film, to be honest, but it probably is going to be a 70s. It's 10 to Midnight, with Charles Bronson. He plays a cop investigating a sort of killer. Again, it's your typical slasher film, um, but it's really, really good. A lot of, is it because it's got Charles Bronson and it's a cop film? You think, is it a horror film? Yes, it most definitely is. It's a slasher film. Um, it's a brilliant film. The story in it is fantastic, and the performances are absolutely amazing. It is. It's a real. I haven't got a bad thing to say about the film. It keeps you engaged, even the parts when there's nothing going on. The conversation keeps you engaged. It's one of those sort of films. Really, really good film. 10 to Midnight. Check that film out, guys, if you haven't seen it. Number 3 is a bit of a more modern one. The Void. Uh, this is, again, it's a very sort of monstery flick, very sort of Silent Hill, Hellraiser sort of monster sort of story. Um, it's a fantastic film. Um, it's a very strange story. A lot of it takes place in a hospital. Um, but yeah, it's got elements of The Mist as well, with sort of like creatures and things outside. Awesome gore in this film. Really, really gory film. It's definitely this would have been high on the video nasty list if the video nasties was around when this came out. But this is quite a modern one. It's got quite a big, huge cult following now. The Void, and I highly recommend it. I mean, there was one film I was trying to find it, but I just can't put my hands on it, that should have been in here. And I'll talk about it another day. I'm not going to talk about it now, but it just come to mind now. There's a film that should have been in here. I'll talk about it another day. Right, number 2. Another 80s teen slasher, typical slasher film. Night of the Creeps. A little bit underrated as a slasher film. Doesn't get a lot of love. It's quite funny, and it's also it's really, really cool. It's obviously about these. If you've ever seen it, it's got these strange-looking aliens at the beginning of the film. Uh, yeah, running around their spaceship, and it's just supposed to come down to take over human beings, and they sort of like turn them into sort of semi-zombie like. Night of the Creeps. It's your typical 80s slasher. Fantastic. Now here's one that doesn't get a lot of love, which I don't know why, because it's one of the best films I've ever seen, and that's Let the Right One In. A Swedish horror film. It's a vampire movie. And it's about this young lad here, Ellie, whatever his name is, and he lives in this apartment with his mum, and this young lady moves in next door, and she's a vampire, and they become friends, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful film. It's beautifully shot. The music is amazing. The story is really, really awesome, and it's got there is some hard to watch moments in there, sort of like gore and stuff, but it's not that bad. But this is one of the greatest films. It's definitely my favourite vampire film. It's called Let the Right One In. I highly recommend you seeking this one out. It is in Swedish, but have English subtitles, but that works for the film. The Americans did do a remake called Let Me In. Just avoid it. Watch this one. Okay, that's the one you want to watch. And they are my underrated films. If you've not seen any of those, please check them out. Especially Let the Right One In. I mean, it's an amazing film. And also, I would really like you to check out The Boy. If you're into more sort of up-to-date modern horrors, a lot of the modern horrors now are really good, but they tend to go for more jump scares, because there's a lot of them are made sort of like about hauntings and sort of possessions and ghost stories now, aren't they? You know, from obviously you've got things like The Conjuring, all those sort of up-to-date films are all the Woman in Black, Sinister, Insidious. They're all amazing films, but they're all kind of like based on jump scares. The Boy's got jump scares in it, so it is one of those sort of films. But it's the one that sort of gets missed off because of things like The Conjuring and stuff like that, which is so popular. And this one seems to go by, gets missed off. The other film that I was talking to you about that I just can't, I think it's downstairs, is one called The House of the Devil. Now, it was made recently. It's a newish film, but looks like it was made in the 1970s. A really, really good film. It's a sort of babysitter film again, you know. So, House of the Devil. If I could put my hands on it, I'd show it to you. But I believe I've got it downstairs because I'm up here in my games room with my spiders and my Sullivan. He's up here as well. You come and say hello, baby. Oh, here he is. Look, here he is. So, yeah, check out The House of the Devil. It's such a good film. Right, that's it then. That's my underrated films. I'm not sure what's going to come up next. If you've got any suggestions of anything you would like me to cover. I mean, there is obviously horror comedies I can do, and there's sort of films that are quite disturbing. Or I can focus on a certain film, like what my favourite Saw films are, or you know, anything like that. If anything like that, just drop down a comment down below, and please click on the like if you like the video, and subscribe, or pass the video around if you think anybody will enjoy it. But until I see you next time, guys, you look after yourselves, and I really hope I see you all soon.